Gloria is not only my blood sister, but she's also a part of the collective. And we're really proud of this collective and where it's at. And so the how it came about, and so who we are, and we're really a wordy bunch. So sharing with some of the other members that our who we are is really a lot, because we are many things. But one of the things that is really important, a couple of the things that is really important, that we are all women of color that have been in the Boston area and have in some way, shape, or form are involved in the healing world. Some of us are holding many hats. I'm a therapist, but I also hold, I'm a restorative circle facilitator. Gloria is her passion is in cooking, but she's also a preschool teacher, has had her own business for over 20 years. So we have Boston public school teachers and nurses. We're multi-generational. We have college students, we have a high school student, we have many volunteers that come, but the core of the healers are 11 of us. And we launched in 2018. September was the first event. And again, we're sitting around a table, similar to what we're doing now, and just really thinking about where we are. And the impetus for this was 2016, the result of the elections. And one of the things that we find as healers is that we're very isolated, and that it's very lonely to be able to do the work that you want to do, and work that help led by the heart, and do it alone. For over 20 years that I've been doing my clinical work, I've been one of few, if not at times one of the only Latina Spanish-speaking clinician, and so that takes that also takes a toll into what it is, how it is that you show up to support. And so when we come together with this idea of truly thinking about healing in its purest form, and going back to our abuelitas. So, we were born in Puerto Rico. I moved here from Puerto Rico when I was 10 years old, and still very much connected to my land and to the and to my family. But our abuelita, and I remember, I don't know if Gloria remembers, our great grandparents who lived in the countryside. You walked in there with a bellyache. My grandmother was going into her backyard, picking up leaves and making tea. And so we grew up with that, and I think part of us are taking that for granted. And I'm wondering how many of you, when you're feeling ill and you're not feeling well, are you automatically turning into the medicine cabinet or going to CVS, or are you thinking of other ways of healing? Yes, no? What do you do?
So I grew up where we didn't have Band-Aids, we had an aloe vera plant. So if you get a cut, you go to the aloe vera plant, you cut off a piece and you hold it back.
My mom and dad they like to pretend they're pioneers. They're like hippies, and they live in, my mom's an avid gardener, so she would use a lot of like little New Englandy herbs and spices, especially around, my entire family has kind of some like, what we call a Jewish stomach, also instead of little tummies, so we use a lot of like ginger and lemongrass.
Yeah. And so if we all have a connection to land. Sadly, we live in a city, and sometimes we lose that connection. But we're thinking about our ancestors. This is how they made it. And the reason why we're here is because they had Jewish stomach, right? And so they built that for us. And so really thinking about how do we engage with those ways, how we decolonize the way that we think about healing. Most of the best healings, at least at my house, happen around my kitchen. And so when we are sharing meals, we're talking, we have a really close-knit, good, friend of circle of girlfriends. And when we come around to tell stories, we're not saying that that's therapy, but really that is how our ancestors did it. They sat in circles and talked about not only what was happening within family, but what was happening in the community. And so two of our goals as healers is to decolonize And the other one is to reclaim the way that we not only look at our healing, but the way that we are presenting healing to, to ourselves and to community. Do you want to add anything more? Yeah. So the next slide, that was during our first event. And these 11 plus, because there's a few healers there. There's artists, there's, like I say, nurses, there's Reiki masters, there are, there a few are volunteers that just helped out in the event. And that event, we again went blindly, and this was at the farm in Mattapan, the US5. And if you don't know, if you've never visited this beautiful farm on Morton Street in Mattapan,
Urban Farming
the
Institute.
Urban Family Institute, they were so generous, and everything that we've done, we've had a number of events, and we tried to connect our events with the seasons, and winter is by far the most challenging one. But this was in September, and they were so generous, and they were like, just give us a donation. And we were able to ask for donations from the participants, and that's how we were able to get the space. And it's beautiful, and it was beautifully attended. And one of the things that happened almost magically, because it was such a beautiful sunny day, neighbors were outside, and there were triple deckers throughout this this farm, and so people could see that there was something happening, and they gravitated, and we just had a bunch of community folks show up, and so you could see just the beauty and the excitement. This was, I believe, towards the end. This was at the very end that we were all still smiling, and it was just exhausting, but it's exhausting in such a beautiful way that we all slept so beautifully that night, and so it was just truly blessed. And these folks. My children, Gloria's children are there, and we put them for babysitting, so we provided childcare for everybody. We had registration, and so everybody took it. It truly took a village. It took a village. Next slide. Yes, and next slide. And so these are some of the offerings that we've had, and so this has been really exciting. We come together as members, and we come up with the agenda. We come up with what the offering is. We come up with who we invite. And for the last 2 events, we invited indigenous members of the community. One of them got sick the morning of. But during our last event, we had a woman that is from the Worcester area, and she came and did our blessing. And really, again, connecting with the roots. I wanted Gloria to talk a little bit about, because one of our events in this past September was around water. And so one of the things that we do is, for every single individual that you saw there that has an expertise, one of the connectors is plant medicine, herbs. And we intertwine all of these practices and all of these disciplines to provide, these supports. And so, as an herbalist and an artist, combining a workshop and presenting it to the community is something that I don't know that's been done. And if you've never participated, I would ask that you can make a point of agenda to participate in one of them, because it's really beautiful.
2020 has 4 offerings coming up.
We did the water as medicine in September, and so I wanted Gloria to mention a little bit about how she connected water into her cooking, into her herbs, and into that magic that you did.
Okay, hey everyone. Certainly I love cooking and food, and cooking to me is medicine, which is one of the many offerings that we have as a collective. And for this particular offering, we did soups and stews that connected us to our cultures, or connected us to whether it's gardening or our ancestors. And so whoever signed up for my workshop, they were able to participate in hands-on experiences of making like a lentil soup or a stew that related, a stew that connected us to water, because you need the basis of a stew or soup is water. So it was a good way to connect the community on ways that what things they do at home to like soothe them, what comforts them in when making a stew or a soup. And so we had a lot of young members in the community as well, which is like having a teenage son. It was great to have him participate and to be able to share like some of his favorite things in cooking and stews, and also like some elders sharing from different cultures, from Morocco to a full range of people just sharing soups and stews that connected them to their culture and participating and adding to the ingredients. And so, my offering was making stew together, making soups together, and enjoying all the rarities.
You just taking for granted that when we say, water is life, how many aspects, how often we're using water in so many different ways, when we're not necessarily thinking water is life, or we're making stew, just taking for granted that we're making a stew. And one of the things that's really important to note is that when we created the collective, it was truly in mind to have spaces dedicated to BIPOC. So even though there are times once a year. Oh, okay. So it's Black, Indigenous, and people of color. So there is exclusive spaces for BIPOC, for individuals of color. There are twice, once a year. We do, like the launch was open to our allies as well. But I think, we think and feel strongly that it's really important that, as communities of color, that we come together. And one of the things that we find that, we may be from Puerto Rico, but somebody was from Morocco, and there's so many of our stories that are so similar. And so bringing together this connection of, again, is very isolating. And if you think about not only the 2016 election and what that did for communities of color, the many other things that are happening, whether it's our health disparities, and I don't need to get into those percentages, but if you are interested, just Google it, even within Boston, right? You could go from Mattapan to the South End, and the disparity in terms of diabetes is dire. And so our intention is to provide this healing and provide these opportunities for communities of color who are most impacted by these needs. There are, again, our annual events that are open to allies, and we welcome allies, and it's all of it is donation based. And so not only are we donating our times as healers, we're providing our own everything, yeah. And so we have a few letters. Gloria was generous, and there was one that was typed up for Costco, and they donated water, because our events are lengthy, and so we want to be able to feed folks. We want to be able to provide childcare, but we also have opportunities, like within the childcare, there is an activity even for children. And so when we truly say it's multi-generational, it's from the beginning to end, from not only the participants, but including us as healers. The youngest is 15, and the youngest is into her 80s, and she wouldn't like you to say that, but she looks really, really good for her age. And so we are really, when I started putting this, started noting, it's like, well, we haven't done a lot, but truly we have done a lot since we launched. And we had something not too far from here, and actually we grew up here in Eggleston, and so it's it's coming back home, and I know Vida Urbana, it's been around for a long time, and the fact that I couldn't find it and everything looks so different from when we lived around here. We grew up in Eggleston Square, and so to have this walk, a neighborhood walk, and to what we see as weeds, or as we see as as pests in our yard, to learn that these are actually medicinal, and these are could potentially provide some healing, and hence the singing nettle. I'm not the herbalist in the family. Our younger sister is And she is my grandmother reincarnated. And she's actually in Puerto Rico as we speak, doing some work. We made medicine together on Saturday night. And she was bringing it to the families in Puerto Rico that are currently living in shelters as a result of not only Maria, but of the earthquake. And so that's not pointed here, but it's something that, again, that we're doing, and the work is pretty constant. And so as you can see, we have a few things going on. And so this is some beautiful pictures of some of the events we had: singing and storytelling. The herb is of, you know, we made wands. What is it called? The little burning
Bundles.
the bundles.
Sage bundles.
Yeah, but these were pine. They're made out of pine. We've had folks make, and again, it's the ones that we made this Saturday were calming drops. And so and the community usually tells us, we are experiencing ourselves, where the calming one is one of the most popular ones, because we're the anxiety of now the 2020 election, like some, so it's never ending. And so really important that taking care of ourselves. And there's the bottom one is a young Layla making bracelets. There's Reiki. There's the stew. I think that was the beans.
The beans, yeah.
Yeah.
That was the first one.
That was the first one. And Fulani wanted to be here. Sister Fulani wanted to be here, but she's actually at a play. And she led us in singing at the end. So there was some shows, and and Taina, she did the art show, art as resistance.
And I just wanted to make a note, in one of our walks, our community walks, as we were exploring different herbs and plants in the city, neighbors also came out, which is again one of our goals, is to engage the neighborhood as much as we can. And it could be in passing. It doesn't have to be something that we deliberately want. It just happens organically. So in our walks through the neighborhood here in Eggleston, there were actually neighbors on their front yards, and engaging and talking to us and saying, as we were admiring some of their gardens or their yards. So it also connected people to start to talk about stories and talk about their experiences on plants and what we do. So it's another way of engaging the community on what we're doing by just in passing. So it was good just to be a presence in the community by just walking around and talking about plants.
Yeah, and I think, what's happened organically as well is that we're empowering the community to really think about what healing looks like. And what does that truly mean? Thinking about our grandmother and the basket of medication that she had. And so thinking about what does this mean, in terms of our healing, and what does it mean in terms of reclaiming those ancestral ways? And we have done that. And so just thinking about what you've heard so far before we go into our next step. Are there any questions, thoughts that you have?
Oh, I just had a thought that I would, a historical connection there. In the history of the second wave of feminism, healing is a part of that as well, in recognizing all the violence done in women's lives and how we can deal with that politically as well as our private lives and our social fabric. So there's been books published like Feminism is Healing, or Feminism as Therapy, rather, I should say. And it recognizes the political aspect of healing as well as an element of that. That's just it. Last of all, that even now in Mexico with this murder that happened of the 7-year-old girl, the neighborhood has organized around that politically as well as in the healing sense of the funeral and what they did.
Okay, yeah, you talked about soups. I really even remember in New Hampshire that there used to be a good way for leftovers. you know. And somebody said they had, when he was in the service, young people come in, they called it empty the kitchen.
Mhm.
So, you know, soups. And sometimes soups are good for upset stomach too. You know, and another thing my mother used to do, out of fat, she would put perfume and make lotion out of it. You know, like just normal fat from cooking. Once I made a mistake and I thought it was the fat to cook and I fried swordfish in it. You know,
And I think you know, the other part of that is like our bodies know and our bodies remember. And it's just about giving our bodies the opportunity to connect with those memories and, you know, and with those ways. You know, it is resistance and it is, you know, one way to look at, you know, this type of thinking about healing in such a way. It's also very transformative because then it empowers you to think about what have I done so far and what can I reclaim? And so it's about reclaiming your, you know, your health.
and I think it's also about not having waste. You know, that's the whole, you know, like our zero. It's not wasting stuff and using it.
And one of the things that I know it's coming close to an end, but one of the things that is very clear, and it's this beautiful quote by Audre Lorde, and I believe she had a birthday recently. There is no liberation without community. And so, you know, any time that we are coming together with any of the offerings, or we're coming together as healers to think about this, it's just that the energy that comes and that's healing, right? And the ability to do this in community. It's like when we heal with that, you know, and you know what you're saying about what happened in Mexico and then what happened in Puerto Rico in July. You know, and so there's this power in community, and so being able to come together and think about healing in such a way. One of the things that we all have in common and we use are the herbalists in our group, and I would say that the herbalists in our group, which are about 4 or 5 of them, are the essence of the collective, because so much of, you know, of whether it's food, right? You think the herbs or so much of the medicine comes from plants and seeds, and being able to do that is like it's somewhat challenging being in the Boston area to have access. And so, you know, again, donations and healers of color are a lot, but we are not at the forefront. Herbalists are even less. And so it's very, now it's been very popularized to have this, you know, this idea of an herbalist. And I know when 3 of the healers did it, they were one of only people of color doing these. Not only are these classes expensive, they're not going to reach for a lot of folks. And so one of the things that we're doing as healers is sharing our own, you know, our own knowledge. You know, I was thinking about wealth, but wait, our mind wealth with each other. And so there are these, again, the cross collaboration. So even as a therapist, and part of the reason why I'm doing this sleep is, you know, really incorporating the psychotherapy, the mental health world with the herbal world, right? And we think about, you know, the flower essences and the aromatherapies that are being used, but we don't really think about, you know, how can we incorporate these? You know, there are certain smells, you know, such as Gloria's cooking that provides some healing. Like automatically when I walk into her house, I was like, she's making those black beans again. And so, you know, remembering that, but again, in terms of the hopes and how we're, I think that's the next slide.
I don't know why I'm stuck a little bit. Let me see if I can refresh it. Apologies.
Okay.
Again.
Okay, that one. And so how ideal it would be, right? I know that it's very common in the city of Boston, and we all live within the Boston area, to be able to have a box, to have access as healers to a box whether we could plant herbs or medicinal plans.
Do you mean like the raised bed or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and or even in community gardens,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
I know that, you some aspects, or if anybody knows of a greenhouse where we could, it's really hard during the winter time, to be able to, grow some of, so if we could plan ahead and, and grow some herbs or some, flowers that we could use in our future events. And so planning that ahead that would be beautiful. One of the challenges that we've had, and, all of our events so far have been in the farm in Mattapan. And one of the reasons that's been is because, we want to be able to access other neighborhoods in the city. Yet we can't afford, again, we're all donating our time. And when we reached out to other places in the city, we couldn't afford, and there wasn't a discount or there wasn't a donation base. And so we continue to provide it in the Mattapan area, and even though that's a beautiful space that even has an open kitchen and a barn, and it limits access to other folks in the community that we wanted to reach. And so that's both access and space is combined, because if you don't have the space, we can have both access to what we are providing. We are, we have over 400 followers in our social media, and we've had over close to 300 participants in all our offerings. But just thinking about what it will mean to have a website, right, where we have our yearly calendar, we spend some time ahead of time breaking it down and deciding when we're having it and what the theme is. So, to be able to put it out to the community. Again, like I said, the resources, all our healers are buying things out of their own pockets. I know when we did the yoga one, we all collected our yoga mats and brought them. And so to be able to, I know we have recurrent workshops, and so what it would mean to be able to have our resources available to us. One of the things that we're doing, and I'm actually in the planning committee for this one, is a retreat for us, because you cannot provide healing if you're not taking care of yourself. And so we are doing an annual retreat to think about what we need, where we are, and how do we, again, take care of ourselves so that we could show up and support not only our families, but the community. And then compensating those for their time and effort. It would be really beautiful to be able to say, Gloria, I'm paying you for your time. Strong Oak was the woman from Western Massachusetts, Indigenous, that was willing to travel from Western Massachusetts and do an opening and closing ceremony for us, to be able to also pay our elders who have been doing this and are the ones are the carrier of our story. And so again, and increasing outreach. And so this is part of the outreach, and being able to have you either participate yourself, whether it's one of our events that are exclusive to BIPOC, or when we are providing the event for our, our allies as well, that you don't only come and participate, but that you're sharing it with your communities as well. Did I miss anything, Gloria?
Growing the collective to uplift other community healers.
Growing the collective to other healers, and also collaborating. I know that there are, we talked about, and I can't remember the name. I wrote the name down in another slide. I know that there is a collective of women of color through the Black market, and we've already been in talks about around doing some some collaboration. Yeah,
I'm hoping that.
Yes, that's happening. And then this, I know that there's one in New York, and so the model of the Singing Nettle Brujas Collective is based out of Harriet's Apothecary, I believe. And so there are these efforts, and so how do we not only enhance what we're doing, but support each other in really intentional ways? And so the plan is to also grow the collective, but do it in a way that we could also sustain ourselves, because like I mentioned, we're mothers and teachers and nurses, and so this work of the heart is work of the heart, but it's just work of the heart. And that's where it stops. And it's beautiful work, right? And so when it's doing work of the heart, it doesn't feel like it's work. But, but also to thinking, just thinking about like my own, like my own children. I almost brought, a picture that my daughter, who is in college now, but when she was in high school, she was asked to do a project, and her project was a photography. She chose photography, and it was about the women in her life and their connection to nature. And so, how we're showing up and impacting our younger generation without even realize that that's what we're doing. But it's just more reason why we will continue to do this. And I think we will continue to do this even if we have to continue to do it. It may not be to the extent that we're doing it, and we may not always be able to provide 4 events a year. It may be that it may be 2 events a year, but we're really committed to doing the work and the reclaiming and decolonizing. And then the last slide.
Okay.
Last is just about how to contact us, and I do have some copies of it. We have a Facebook page. One of these days we'll have a website.
Your Instagram.
Ideally, we'll
Do you have
have.
an Instagram? Well, maybe it's just
we're
email.
working on.
Okay.
Yeah.
I follow you.
Yeah, it's her own.
Okay.
It's her own. And again, to exist is to resist, and that is so relevant to so many of our stories and so many of our narratives. But I want you to think about that in terms of your healing. I want you to think about that in terms of your, mental, emotional, physical health and well-being, and think about what that means for each one of you. And also, don't ever forget your ancestral ways. They're in you, and just give them an opportunity to come through you. In the moment that we do, just thinking about your soup right now, and brought you home, right? Thinking about your home in New Hampshire. We have these stories, and it's about allowing that to come through. And so that's in very short, what we do, what we want to do, what we want to continue to do, and really hope that you all, and I have copies here in the event that you want to follow. If there was anything that I missed or that you missed, our contact information is here, including a phone number, and I'll leave these with you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Are you participating in the World Water Day